This is a SnapEd New York video presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Wendy Beckman and I'm a registered dietitian with the New York State Office for the Aging and SnapEd New York. Thanks for joining me today on What's Cooking with NYSOFA. Today I'm going to be making a black bean and pumpkin soup. We'll post the link to the recipe below, and it can also be found on the SnapEd New York website at www.snapedny.org. This recipe calls for canned pumpkin, but you can use fresh pumpkin if you want to. Be aware that if you want to use a fresh pumpkin, make sure that you purchase an edible pumpkin, not an ornamental pumpkin. Ornamental pumpkins are used for decorations or for carving like jack-o'-lanterns, but they're not suitable for eating. Check with whomever you're purchasing your pumpkins from to make sure that you're purchasing an edible variety. You can bake the pumpkin in the oven just like you would with any other squash before using it in the soup. In New York State, pumpkins are most plentiful between September 1st and October 31st. I'm going to be using canned pumpkin for this demonstration. Now, before we get into the recipe, let's look at MyPlate. This recipe covers the fruits and vegetables section of MyPlate because it includes beans, tomatoes, onions, and pumpkin. Tomatoes are a great source of vitamin C, folate, and potassium. Pumpkins are also a great source of potassium and vitamin C, in addition to vitamin A, vitamin E, and some minerals like iron, copper, and manganese. You want to make half of your plate fruits and vegetables at each meal, and this recipe can help you to reach that goal. This recipe also includes some protein foods like black beans, ham, and an optional Greek yogurt. Varying your protein routine to include low-fat protein sources and including plant-based protein sources like beans is good for heart health. Our bodies use protein to build and repair cells, including immune system cells that help to keep us healthy. Remember that everything you eat and drink over time matters. You want to find your healthy eating style and maintain it for a lifetime. The right mix can help you be healthier now and in the future. So let's start making some soup. Remember to wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer before you start cooking. Now we're going to start making the soup. Let's look at the ingredients for the recipe. The recipe makes 14 servings. Now if you want to, you could cut the recipe in half or make the whole recipe and eat some now and then freeze some later to use. I have cut the ingredients in half today. That's what I have here. Before we talk about the rest of the ingredients, I've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil here, and I'm going to put that in the warm pan. Now I'm going to add 1 1/4 cup of onion that I have right here. You can hear it cooking already. That's good. And then I am going to add in 4 cloves of minced garlic. I also have 2 tablespoons of cumin. I'm going to add that to the pan. And then I also have 1/4 teaspoon of some pepper. You can use more or less depending on whatever you like. The cumin is a little bit spicy, but not too much. In this recipe, you barely notice it. But if you like something a little bit spicier, you can add a little bit more of the cumin. And we're going to let that cook for a little bit. Because all of these ingredients, we got to have them in there for a few minutes before we add everything else. And I chopped up the onion and the garlic pretty small so that it would cook more quickly. So that looks pretty good. Go right ahead. Let's look at the rest of the ingredients. The recipe calls for 3 15-ounce cans of black beans, which I have right here, and 1 16-ounce can of diced tomatoes, which I have here. Now look for the low sodium options if they're available in your store. I was able to find no sodium added black beans. Sodium is one of those ingredients that you want to limit or avoid because it can make high blood pressure worse. So look for ways to limit your sodium intake whenever you can. The recipe also calls for 4 1/2 cups of low sodium beef broth, which I have here, and you could use vegetable broth if you want to make the recipe vegetarian. I have a 1/2 pound of chopped ham. You can certainly omit that ingredient also if you want to make the recipe vegetarian, or if you want to limit your sodium intake, you can look for a low sodium ham or just forget the ham altogether. Although I think that using the ham in the soup is a great way to use up any that you have left over extra from maybe dinner earlier the week. We also have one 16-ounce can of pumpkin puree and 4 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Another optional ingredient is 1 tablespoon of plain low-fat Greek yogurt. You want to use unflavored plain yogurt. Greek yogurt is a great substitute for sour cream. Plain Greek yogurt is lower in fat and higher in protein than regular full-fat sour cream. So it's a good way to cut your saturated fat intake. Now, the first thing that we have to do is puree the black beans and the tomatoes in a blender or a food processor. And I have some pureed previously, but I have the food processor behind me. I'm going to get that out. So let me bring this over here. So what you have to do, I have some of these beans in here, and you have to add some of the tomatoes. So let me bring that over here and get that going. So this is something where if you have a blender, certainly you can use a blender, you can use a food processor, or you can even just sort of mash those ingredients together. You don't have to use a food processor, but I find that it's a little bit easier if you've got one. So let me put the top back on, and I need to put this top on, and let's blend these two things together. All right, that's looking pretty good. You want it to be pretty smooth because once you add the pumpkin puree, you want to make sure that all of those ingredients sort of mix together. So let me take the top off here. We're going to add this to the pan. I'm actually going to put some of these black beans whole into the pan as well. That just gives it a little bit more texture. You certainly don't have to do that. You can blend everything if you want to, but I'm just going to leave some of those black beans whole. We're going to mix that in with the onions and the garlic and the olive oil. And now let's put the puree into the pan. All right, that looks pretty good. And watch out for the blades. Sometimes they can be sort of sharp, so let's make sure you don't cut yourself on those. All right, let's mix those together as well. All right, now you can start to see that soup starting to come together here. All right. Now, the last thing I need to add here of these ingredients is the pumpkin. I'm going to use a little spatula to do that. We're going to add that pumpkin in. And you're going to see this pumpkin is just going to disappear right into this soup. You're not even going to see it anymore. It's a great way to add some more vegetables into your diet, some extra nutrients. So let's just mix that together and we'll see how that looks. It smells really good. I think that the onion and the garlic and the cumin together just smell delicious. So we're going to let that go. All right. So what you need to do after you have those all mixed together is you're going to let the soup simmer for about 25 to 30 minutes on low heat until it gets a little bit thicker. So that is one thing that we can do. The other thing that you can do is you're going to have to add the vegetable or the beef broth. So let's do that. I've got beef broth here. I have low sodium. Let's put that in and let's mix that together. Okay. As this simmers, it'll thicken up a little bit more. You know, it might look a little bit watery right now, but over time it's going to get a little bit thicker for you. Okay. And then the very last thing that you can add is your ham. I'm going to add that in. And then we've got some apple cider vinegar. And I know you might be thinking that's a little bit odd to add in there, but trust me, it's delicious. I tried the soup last night and it just came out wonderful. So you're going to stir all of that in together and you're going to let that heat through. So you want the ham and the apple cider vinegar to sort of get up to temperature with the rest of the soup. Once you're ready to serve the soup, you can add your low-fat Greek yogurt to the top, just as a little bit of a garnish. And that is it. And as you can see, the recipe does go together pretty quickly. The pumpkin adds a nice thickness and it's full of nutrients. It also boosts your vegetable intake for the day. So let me show you some soup that I made previously so that you can see what it looks like. Have it in here. Take the top off. So you can see That's what the soup looks like when it's done. It's all nice and blended together. You've got some of the ham chunks in there, and that pumpkin's in there nice and mixed together. So I know you've heard me say before that all forms of fruits and vegetables count. Fresh, frozen, canned, and dried can all be used to make half of your plate fruits and vegetables. With this recipe, you can use canned pumpkin like I did, but you could also use fresh pumpkin. And let us know if you'd like to try this recipe and if you want to use canned pumpkin or fresh. I hope this recipe gave you some more ideas on how to incorporate more vegetables into your diet. Don't forget to join me for the next month when I share more tips on how to save time, save money, and eat healthy. In November, I'm going to be making Brussels sprouts, apple, and sweet potato hash. It's a healthy and delicious recipe for the fall season. I'll be back with another episode of What's Cooking with NYSOFA on Friday, November 25th at 12:30 p.m. Each episode premieres on that day on the New York State Office for the Aging Facebook page and the New York State Office for the Aging YouTube channel. This presentation was funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Have a great day, everyone, and stay safe out there.
Thank you for joining us today. We know the healthy choice isn't always the easiest choice, but small changes can make a big difference. Start today by getting involved with SNAP-Ed New York. This program is free for those who qualify or receive SNAP benefits. We want to help you save time, save money, and eat healthy. Learn how SNAP-Ed can make a difference in your life. For more information and to find your local program, visit snapedny.org. This material is funded by USDA's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. SNAP. This institution is an equal opportunity provider.